Gordon Smith checking in from Denmark, who's on our Zoom panel. We got a Zoom panel of Super Fozy tonight. Our regulars from the America's Cup experts, all three. There, Ed Worley in the upper right corner, Gordon Smith, the lower right corner, Graham Sweeney in the lower left corner, where it's blowing dogs off chains. Up in the British Isles, Rick Banner's on in super cold Connecticut, Jamie Hutchison in chilly Florida, Warren Schasser in Brisbane, Mark Holland north of Boston. Alan Long is in Lago Vista, Texas. Jeff Kitson checking in from frigid Michigan. Stingray up in Seattle. Welcome to all of you. Don Lunabos in Petaluma, Mary Jude in Philly, and John Hanfield in the Virgin Islands.
Oh, maybe we'll go for a visit.
We are live once again from Studio B here at the Beach Street Yacht Club. It's kind of an overcast day here now, Julia. I trust you are well, Madam Co-host.
I am.
Any news?
Oh, yes.
Better not hear any news.
No.
Jody Shields is on. He's probably got news. He's in the hot box, ready for an interesting show. We're going to have an interesting show. It's a good one. Plus, we have the Zoom panel. Greg Phillips on the Gold Coast in Oz. Thanks, Greg, for all of your submissions. Rob Fry, famous father of Leonard Takahashi, is sunny in Auckland, where it's summertime down there. Welcome, everybody, to our show number 803 for today, Friday the 24th. If you're up here with us, it's down under. It's Saturday the 25th, and it's been a week of big news. But let's start with the weather, since we can't do anything about it. And that was a submission early this morning from Graham Sweeney, who we mentioned is in the midst of the low pressure. It has moved right over the top of Graham. 100-knot storm, I don't know how to pronounce that, Eowyn, sweeps across the British Isles. Let's look at the video from the Daily Record, and then we'll get an update from Graham, who, as I said, is right in the eye of this hurricane force storm.
A rare red weather warning has been extended in Scotland, with tens of thousands of people having been left without power as Storm Eowyn sweeps across the country. The Met Office's most severe warning first came into force at 10 a.m, covering central Scotland, Tayside and Fife, southwest Scotland, Lothian Borders and Strathclyde. But at 11 a.m, it was extended to include more areas of the southwest. The warning is now due to last until around 5 p.m. A danger to life warning has been issued by the Met Office due to flying debris from buildings. It's expected that winds across central Scotland could reach as high as 100 miles per hour throughout the course of the day. Power outages have already struck a number of areas in Scotland, with 11,000 homes in Dumfries and Galloway without power. It was one of the 5 areas already affected, with 10,000 people previously estimated to be without electricity. SP Energy say that when it is safe to commence repairs, they will work hard to restore supplies as quickly as possible. All ScotRail trains have been cancelled today due to high winds and rain. An amber warning is also in place for the whole country from 6 a.m. tomorrow, running until 9 p.m. Keep up with the latest weather updates on our app or website.
Courtesy of the Daily Record in the UK. Yikes, Julia.
Wow. Yes.
Let's go to Graham Sweeney. Graham, you there?
Yes, Tom. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How, sir, are you doing? Do you have power? Obviously you do. You wouldn't be on the Zoom panel with us.
Currently, we have power. Currently, we have the internet, and it's not been too bad. I mean, we've looked at the weather on the TV and stuff. Seems to have hit a lot further south of us. And I think that's where the problem is, really, because these are the storms we get all year. I mean, we'll have 1 or 2 of these big biblical type storms, and then it'll be a bead of smaller storms coming straight across the new guys in the States. And,
I see your weather. I see your weather guys are blaming this storm on us, saying it came from the U.S.
Well, I agree with them.
You do? Well, just because Trump got inaugurated, you think this is a kind of an afterblast from the Trump inauguration?
No, I don't think Trump's got that sort of power. That's me never going back to American.
Well, stay safe. I see Andrew Watson is on. He's checking in from Glasgow, having survived Storm Eowyn. Is that how you say it, Graham? Eowyn?
I don't know. I think things that cause you harm, you don't tend to remember their names, so I'm not even bothering.
Well, I hope you're okay and staying safe. It's wintertime, and as you say, you get storms. And you've got quite a storm there now passing over you. And I guess one of the things, Graham, I saw on various weather reports, including Channel 10 in Australia, who had a great video, I almost used that one, saying that there was so much advance notice that people were prepared, people were ready for it. I mean, I saw you or various people sent that map of the red flag map where every chunk of, all around the British Isles had red flag warnings because of this huge storm, and they knew it was coming, and people took caution, got prepared.
It's very slow moving. I mean, it's not in any hurry like some of the storms we get. They come bolting through like a wreck, train wreck. But this is going very slow. We've had it all day, but it's just been a height about 60 mile an hour, max 50 to 60 mile an hour, and literally that's normal for here. But the thing that causes the problem is that it will come back from the other side of the house. So from one side of the house you've protected, we will then get the wind coming from exactly the opposite side, and it's going to hit us literally in the
after the low passes by and you get the wind from the other direction. Yeah, exactly. Well,
I just went outside, Tom, and I looked up and I could see the stars.
So you are literally right in the eye.
Yeah, I mean, right in the center of it. I've actually sent on my Facebook. I put the latest map, which shows us literally in the center.
Well, stay safe, and as usual, the cheeky remarks are coming in. Mark Holland is saying it, he's an American. He's saying it must be windy there. They're driving on the wrong side of the road in that video. And Stingray is saying one here's a giant iceberg is going to hit Scotland next. Maybe Greenland's going to get blown over there. I don't know about that. And others are talking about Sandusky, Ohio, Lyman Boat Works Restoration Seminar Weekend. Denise Peterson is in Sandusky, Ohio. Clark Chapin's on a train going across southern Michigan, maybe to Chicago, I'm not sure where. Neil Collingridge in the UK, he was saying it was remarkably calm in Suffolk all day. What a winter, though. I guess it's been a tough winter in the UK. Probably not in Scarborough where Pindar is. It's always nice there. But that's so much on the weather report. And the other cheeky remark, I don't know if you appreciate this, those of you in Ireland and maybe even in Scotland, but this came from Ryman, and he's saying spotted humanitarian aid en route to Ireland, a truck of Guinness beer. And Julia, do you know this Tato brand? Taytao?
No.
Any of the Zoomers, Gordon, or the Tato brand? Well,
it's like potato chips.
I did some research on it, and exactly, Tato Snacks is a crisp and a popcorn manufacturer in Ireland, founded by Joe Murphy back in 1954. 53 would have been a better year, Julia. And owned by a German snack food company, Intersnack. It owns several brands, including its leading product of Tato crisps, for which it invented the first flavored crisp production process. Yeah, Yar Vahe knows it. Neil Collingridge, they all know about it. And Andrew Watson saying, Ireland did a great job in absorbing most of this storm. Mark Michelson, our Sailing Illustrated weather guru, is on. He said, we can't get the forecast right. How do you think we could possibly control the weather? We're going to get Mark on for one of these global warming type discussions, Julia.
Oh, good.
He's moved from SoCal. He's avoided the fires. He's been for several years now up in Idaho. Nice place that is. Okay, now we know what's headed up to Ireland but by the way, the weather in Florida is not correct either. It has snowed considerably.
Oh, yeah.
In Florida, and a couple funnies have come through apropos Florida's weather. This is what Florida's map does. It shrinks apparently when Florida gets cold. That's the Gulf of America, by the way. And that came from none other than Graham Sweeney. Graham, you sent that through. Where'd you come up with that one?
These things seem to just turn up on my desktop. I don't know where that came from at all. I just thought, you know what, Tom's going to really appreciate that.
Well, having experienced it, I do appreciate it very much. And then this came through as well just before we went there. Rick Bannerow sent this, and even the alligators are not immune. Is that an alligator or a crocodile? Who knows? I don't.
It's an alligator, I believe.
Gordon, you think that's an alligator? How can you tell? What's the difference?
Yeah, isn't that a good question? I think it's down to where they live, but also the shape of the skull. I may be wrong.
Shape of the snout.
Snape of Snape of the shroud. That's a tongue twister. The shape of the snout. So
table manners.
Is Graham or sorry, Ed Worley? Is that an alligator? Mark Michelson says it's a gator. Rick Bannerow says it's a gator because of the wide snout. Fritz Mueller, who lives down there in Miami, says it's a gator. I think the gators have it. You agree with that, Ed Worley?
Yep.
Did you know, panelists, when you came on here, you were going to have to talk about distinguish between crocodiles and alligators?
Add it to your expertise list.
Clayton Embley is saying the difference is that one will see you later and the other will see you after a while. See you later, alligator. After a while, crocodile. Julia, since Clayton Embley's on, I think we better get you a pour of his bourbon cream. It's Friday. Do you want some or not?
Oh, why not?
Okay, we're going to get Julia some bourbon cream here.
Whee!
Since it's Friday.
Oops.
I try not to pour it on the carpet. This carpet's been
Wait,
destroyed over the years anyway. Here in Studio B, those of you who've been in here like Peter, Foiling Sailor. Gordon Smith says a little snow is fine, just make it snappy. Okay, well, that's so much for the weather. Julia, what are we celebrating today?
Hard to tell.
Gentlemen, on the Zoom, what are we celebrating today? You want to take a whack at that, Ed Worley?
Jousting.
Well done, Julia. We have a winner. Julia's got it. We are celebrating the return of jousting to the America's Cup.
Oh, whoever he is.
And there's Magnus. Speaking of the America's Cup, Magnus is in New York City in the New York Yacht Club. He's just had lunch with another Fozy, with our esteemed Vice Commodore of New York Yacht Club, Claire Harrington. And they are discussing this very topic, I'm sure, among others. Have we had enough of that bongo music? I put this in this segment, but yeah. I think we can lose that. Snow shovels in Florida, but jousting in the America's Cup. And as you all know, Sir Ben was fired, ostensibly, by Sir James Ratcliffe, Sir Ben Ainslie. Yesterday it was announced, and the two teams have split. In effect, Ben's now got his team, the Athena Pathway, or the Athena Team Athena, and it looks like Sir James thinks he continues with Ineos Britannia. To make a long story short, we're going to talk about this on and off throughout the show with our panelists and otherwise, but to make a long story short, Tip and Shaft summed it up rather nicely in their Friday newsletter that came out earlier today. Ineos announced on Thursday its separation from Ben Ainslie, who led the British Challenge in the last two editions of the America's Cup, and its intention to launch its own Ineos Britannia Challenge for the 38th, headed by Kiwi, I insert there, David Endine, who's been the COO of that team, by the way. The four-time Olympic champion Ainslie reacted by stating that the Ineos announcement, quote, raises significant legal and practical obstacles, and by announcing a name change for his challenge, now called, as we told you a minute ago, Athena Racing.
Mm-hmm.
There's their logo, Athena Racing, which you may recall was the name and the branding for the Women's America's Cup team led by Hannah Mills and also by their Youth America's Cup teams, which were entered apparently by Sir Ben and not necessarily by the Ineos Britannia conglomerate
Is that so?
syndicate. Yeah, these were something that Ben privately took care of, I guess, or so I'm reading, if you believe what you read with Magnus and also from Richard Gladwell. So, among others, I mean, there have been a ton of mainstream press coverage. And Hannah, as you all know, has been the strategist on Sir Ben's, and he owns the team, Emirates GBR, which is the Sail GP team. And this was a photo from last weekend when Hannah was with the team as a strategist down in Auckland. There's Pete Burling looking on in the background. Another interesting facet of all this is, Julia, who's that?
Oh,
Gentlemen, who's that?
the
Royal Yacht
Royal
Squadron.
Yacht Squadron.
Royal-
They all
yeah.
got it. That is the Royal Yacht Squadron in Cowes in the Isle of Wight. They are the challenger of record for AC38. And as Magnus wrote yesterday, he's put out another one today, but he's really been prolific in the last 24 hours. He said, it's chaos. It's a war of words. It's big egos, big money, reputations on the line. And this story sounds like it is going to run and run over the coming days. It's fast-paced and deeply interesting. The curse of the challenger of record has well and truly struck again. Ed Worley, I see you nodding your head yes. Carry on, Professor. What does that mean?
I mean, the challenger of record has had a storied past where I think you and I talked about this, that there's very few challenger of records who's actually won the cup.
None.
Because of all the stuff they had to do and all the things they get involved in, and they lose. In my opinion, they get distracted from the goal of winning the cup.
You're absolutely right. And the only time a challenger of record, well, and they really aren't the challenger of record unless there are multiple challengers. The single challenge has won. Of course, New York Yacht Club defeated all the single challenges up till 83. Then there was a challenger of record in 83. And there were multiple challengers. And of course, the Australians won. In 88 and 2010, there was only a single challenger. And the single challenger won, but they weren't technically the challenger record. But since then, the challenger record has only gone to the America's Cup, has only won the Louis Vuitton Cup once. And that was this past Cup when Sir Ben and Sir James together won the Louis Vuitton Cup in advance to the match. But of course, as you said, Ed, they didn't win the match. So it's a poison chalice. And as Magnus said, the curse, he calls it, of the challenger record has well and truly struck again. It was quite an interesting report by Magnus last night. And then he's just before we went to air put out another one, which we'll get to and quote from in a moment. Neil Collingridge in the UK is saying, go ask Man U, because Mr. Ratcliffe now owns a chunk of Man U, maybe the controlling interest of Man United, the soccer team, the football team. And he's saying, go ask the supporters what they think of Sir Jim. Chris Exley's on, arriving late, saying, hello. It seems there is a leadership issue between Jim and Ben. That's Julie Aarons in Cleveland. Chilly Cleveland. J. Frederick Bland's putting it down to same old America's Cup drama once again. Stingray saying BA warns, Ben Ainsley, Sir Ben warns of legal and practical obstacles. Yeah, that was obviously a bit of a legal saber rattling, maybe threat even. But that's last night. That's Fozy Magnus, the magnificent Magnus Wheatley, on his Rule 69 blog, which is on Substack, rather. And if you've not yet subscribed to it, again, I wholeheartedly recommend that you do. Now, what I called it, and I put it up on my Facebook page earlier, I put that jousting graphic up. Did you know that there's such a thing, Julia, as on the water jousting? On the water. It's a fairly recent sport. Gentlemen, did you know there's such a thing as on the water? They're all shaking their heads. No. Well, I have the video to prove it. This is a sport here in this country. Okay, the tape is looping. The video is looping, so you can see that. Okay, guys, Ed Worley, you want to go first?
This is an American sport?
This is an American sport, or so I see on YouTube this morning.
I'm yet again embarrassed. For my country.
Yes.
Back to the video. What do you think, Gordo?
I think it looks really silly, but if the water's nice and warm, I think I'd just jump in before we get anywhere close to me. But
Graham?
I think we've just discovered the real use for jet skis.
Maybe, but I
It's gonna-
wonder, gents, I'm wondering if we could put Sir Ben at one end of that water. Don't want to call it a water board, but that water float, that long float. Put Sir Ben at one end and Sir Jim at the other end, and let them battle it out. What would you think of that?
well, I think both Sir Jim and Sir Ben, they're actually both very physically fit, and I think actually it would be quite a close match.
Okay.
I wouldn't assume Sir Jim is an elderly gentleman with a walking stick by any margin.
Okay, thanks, Gordon Smith, and thanks to our panelists. I think we can leave that one and say that we're also celebrating today our FOSI, our regular viewers, the folks that come on here, like our panelists today. Thanks for your support, especially those of you who joined via patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated to give us a few bucks a month to keep us on the air, keep us lit. Man, my studio energy bill came again.
Uh-oh.
My monthly bill, and it's going up like I guess energy is all. But Mr. Trump hopefully is going to solve that.
I hope so.
Huh?
I hope so.
I hope so. It is chilly, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere. It'd be a good time of the year to be down in Oz or in New Zealand or down with Ted Ryman in Cape Town maybe, or in South America with some of our others. Larry Kennedy saying, "Hola, guys," from frigid New York City. Sorry I missed Tuesday. We missed you too, Larry. It was good. It's a good show with Dawn. Jon Emmett is listening but driving, and Alan Long is in chilly Cleveland. He says one hears Niagara Falls is frozen over. That rarely happens, but it does when it's been a bit chilly. Bowspritz at 40 knots is what J. Frederick Bland is saying. We should fit bowsprits to a couple of those, maybe the AC40s or something.
I thought I remembered jousting on from canoes.
Well, there's, I'm sure, jousting from, I hate to say it, but there's jousting in certain pornography I've seen, Julia. Do you care? You've probably seen it in porn. Upstairs in the Commodore suite where you're watching porn, aren't you? Just admit it, Julia.
I can't watch porn. It's so boring.
Look at these guys. Gordon's computer is being knocked off his lap. FOSI Fun Olympics, I hope that doesn't replace sailing in the Olympics. Peter Taylor is saying, Morton Chaucer, the Aussie that he is, saying that looks like fun. Jousting is the Brits and co-drive on the left. Okay, Steve Gruber. Oh, Jay Frederick, and yeah, if you were in the U.S. Marines, but of course he was in our Navy, I think. Was he a Marine? Were you a Marine or a Navy guy? Yeah, I know you were a submariner, Jay Frederick Bland. Have you seen Ben when he's angry? Neil Collingridge is asking, yeah. Jon Emmett pointing out that Sir Jim is 72 and Sir Ben is 48. And it's very cold. Thanks, Ken Saban. It's cold in Toledo, Ohio. We saw that your Toledo Bay at the western end of Lake Erie is frozen over, and you're ice boating. I saw that you sent a nice video there. Thank you for that. Look at all the comments.
Oh, yes.
Jody Shields says it's 64 degrees in his hot box in, I guess he's back home in Wanji. Christian Price. Hello, Christian. And I know the family Price is on down in Oz. She's saying the World Championships of Jousting are held every July in the castle of the Prince of Bavaria, who is an 18-foot skiff sailor. Only Christian Price would know that. Thank you for that. Mark Michelson's complaining about his electricity bill and natural gas bill. Oh, he says not. They're both going down. The local utility had to apply to reduce our bills. Looks like a college spring break drunk game. Okay, look at, oh my God, Navy. Marines eat crayons. Okay. Fire Vertex. Why do you think they would split? We're going to get to all that and much more. That's a good segue into our next segment. But before we get to all that, I thought we should do a Bravo Zulu or two. Certainly a Bravo Zulu here to the RORC Transatlantic Race winners. And that, of course, is, you know this word, Julia? There it is on your screen. The German name of that boat, or the name of that boat is a German word. He's a German gentleman. Tschüss.
Cheers.
Tschüss.
Cheers.
And the Germans pronounce it, they don't say tschüss, they say tschüssi, tschüss.
Cheers.
It means bye. It's bye. It's bye-bye. Bye-bye. Tschüssi. Tschüss, tschüss, tschüss. I've never heard them say tschüss, tschüss, but, you know, having lived in Germany for nearly 10 years.
I've always heard it as something like saying cheers.
Yeah, Fritz Mueller's got it. It's bye. It's bye. Tschüss. So that's the name of the boat. Choose 2, in fact, announced as the overall winner. You know who the first to finish was. We covered that the other day. But the overall winner is this, I guess, New York Yacht Club member. I guess he's an American. I'm not 100% sure. Claire probably knows. Maybe several others of you do as well. But the RORC is delighted to announce yesterday that the Volvo 70, choose, it's an American boat, owned by our RORC member Christian Zugel, is the overall winner of the 2025 Rourke Transatlantic Race. While the majority of the boats are still racing, at least as of yesterday, none of the competitors at sea can beat Choose 2's corrected time under IRC to win the race overall. The Choose 2 completed the race in an elapsed time of 8 days, 13 hours, 52 minutes. So bravo Zulu to them and their superb crew. Look at the names of that crew. Not only the owner, driver, Christian Zugel, who's the co-skipper with Johnny Mordaunt, Al Frazier, Alex Higby, Campbell Field, Christopher Welsh, Frederick Shanks, Neil McDonald, Nicholas O'Leary, Simon Johnson, Stu Bannatyne, and Tristan Seal. What a group.
Yeah, they look very much alive and not even cold.
Well, you know, they're down there in Grenada, so it should be warm down there in the Caribbean, Southern Caribbean even. Look at the mast placement on that boat. I'm going to go back to that. Alan Long is pointing out the mast placement. Yes, it is so far aft, it looks a little bit like Russell Coots's boat in the 95 Cup, Black Magic. Their rig was so far aft and turned out to be one of the perhaps winning features of that boat, the America's Cup boat in 95. Bravo Zulu to them. And to there, here on the right is the Rourke Racing Manager, Steve Cole, presenting the Rourke Transatlantic Race Trophy to Christian Zugel at the Camper Nicholson's Port Louis Marina in Grenada yesterday, I believe that is, on the occasion again of the RORC's 100th anniversary. We talked about that the other day, 1925 to 2025.
Perfect.
Great stuff. Bravo Zulu, and bravo Zulu to our Super Fozy, who's down there. And we had a picture of him the other day, Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin, who's down there as part of the Maxi Association and the RORC, and so on. Also, Bravo Zulu, while we're doing Bravo Zulus, to Cole Tapper of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. He has been racing in the Helly Hansen International, and he's finished on top of the pile after the qualifying stage was completed yesterday, with the U.S., New Zealand, and Great Britain joining them as semifinalists of the 2025 Helly Hansen International. Cole's a Fozy, Jeffrey Peterson's a Fozy, Josh Hyde is a Fozy. They were all in the semis. And there is Jeffrey, who ended up, he won the first round robin, and then they were tied at the end of the second round robin. That is Jeffrey and Cole. Peterson finished level on points with Tapper, but lost to him in the second round to drop to second on the leaderboard because of having lost in that second round. That's the way they break the ties. Both Tapper and Peterson finished the round with 15 wins and 3 losses from 18 races, so considerably good score. They had a lot of breeze. It was a breezy series. They have now completed the semis and the finals. And in semifinal one there, Cole won 2-0 over Zach West, a fellow Aussie, and Jeffrey Peterson of the States defeated Josh Hyde, the Kiwi, 2-0 as well. Then they went head-to-head, and Cole won 3-1. They split the first 2 races, and Cole won the last 2. As the breeze came up during the day, Cole had a bit of a heavier crew, and they won 3-1. Jeffrey Peterson tends to do better in the light stuff. I'm not sure that's completely true, but so won Hears. And then the Petit Final, Josh Hyde, lost to Zach West. I was a bit of a surprise by that, but Bravo Zulu to all four of them, but particularly to Cole and Josh. There's the overall results. Cole, Jeffrey, Zach, Josh, Ethan Fong, a new-ish name. Marcello Torre, who's another Aussie who's from out in WA, Western Australia, was sixth. Ben Crayford, Daniel Camp, Alec Coleman, and Hugo Butterworth. Is Hugo any relation to Brad Butterworth? Does anybody on our panel know, or anybody in the chat know? Nobody on the panel knows. Julia, do you know?
Oh, I don't.
Google that, would you, Julia? Somebody Google that. Bravo Zulu to Jeffrey Peterson. Larry Kennedy is saying for getting back on the water after his bad injury. Yes, he really did suffer that bad leg injury in collegiate sailing. Rick Bannerow, cream rises to the top. Well done, you four sailors. Ivan Grekoff agrees. And did you see the crew on Lucky? Many, many world-class sailors. Chris Exley is saying yes. And we read their names the other day too, Chris. The Lucky, of course, being the first to finish and breaking that record, that transatlantic record. Okay, I'm not quite sure what for county. I'm not sure what that's all about. J. Frederick Bland and Alan Long thought that was a rolling on the floor laughing, and your comments there. Bravo Zulu to those kids. I mean, they're young adults and great sailors, all of them. And we've got the Gov Cup coming up. I've got my Gov Cup pin on today. And I think we're looking forward to a superb Gov Cup down at Balboa Yacht Club. I'm starting to get inklings from Andy Rose and Christine Gribben about the people who will be applying and whom they will give early acceptance to. And there'll be some news on all that in due course. That, of course, coming up the last week of July here in the States, down in SoCal at the esteemed Balboa Yacht Club. By the way, the last week of June, the U.S. National Youth Match Racing Championship, a.k.a. the Rose Cup, will also this year be hosted by the Balboa Yacht Club, and our Gov Cup TV team will be covering the finals, semifinals, and finals, the final 2 days of that event, the last weekend in June. We also have a NEGAT. Correct me if I'm wrong, J. Frederick Bland, but a NEGAT, Bravo Zulu. I need to put some audio with this one, Julia. Huh? Some kind of a NEGAT, Bravo Zulu, which is the opposite, obviously, of Bravo Zulu. And this is not good news. It's more bad news for U.S. Sailing, about whom we told you a week ago that their 2023, we revealed their Form 990, which is the form that a nonprofit sends into our internal revenue service to show that you give their profit and loss and so on, be sure they're not spending too much money in the wrong places, like directors' salaries. And the 2023 Form 990 showed that they lost nearly $3 million, $2.8 million in 2023. Their new 990, Form 990, is not due till May 15th, so we don't know how they did in 2024, except one hears it was bad. And of course, this whole mess starts with the people on that board who then hired this guy, Alan Osfield, the former U.S. sailing, and as I call him, the non-sailing CEO, made a complete hash of the place, aided and abetted by any number of board members going back several presidents. This guy, as we reported also last week, we have some breaking news, I'll come to it in a moment. This guy was paid $500,000, in fact, $502,000 in 2023. I mean, I can't believe it. Clark Chapin and others may defend a good salary, and I certainly wouldn't. That's a princely sum, and a guy or gal should be well paid if they're running a national governing body with a lot of members and a lot of responsibility. But Gordon Smith is saying what a wonderfully terrible photo. He looks like a perfect dweeb. And as Julie Aarons is saying, the poison starts at the head. Alan Long is there watching carefully and saying, oh my God. Echoes of the World Sailing debacle, Yarvahe is saying, well, wait, there's more. It's gotten worse this week, and we will reveal for you not only their bad news about what Mr. Osfield was paid, this $502, more than $500,000, unbelievable. We told you also that the guy who's responsible, he's the chief revenue officer, the guy who's responsible for bringing the money in, he's leaving at the end of this month. I think he's already out. His name is Eric Krasnew, another non-sailor who was hired by the non-sailing CEO to be the senior vice president for partnerships and membership.
Mm-hmm.
The revenue officer, he's on his way out. He was paid a tidy sum, one hears. The new president who took over in October, who's somebody I've known for a long, long time, not well. We raced against each other as kids, never had any issues. He was a good guy and he's a hell of a good sailor. Lives up in New England, up in the Boston area. We told you last week he was seeking a $400,000 loan so they could make the December and January payables at U.S. Sailing. He has not succeeded in getting such a loan. And earlier this week, he was making the rounds, hat in hand, to try to get money to meet payroll next Friday. Meetings earlier this week, the situation was described by several people with whom I spoke who were in those meetings, described the situation as dire. And the president has told them, if you don't come up with some money, help me come up with some money, we will not be able to make payroll at the end of January, this coming Friday, a week from today. So, I mean, as I said, there's no Schadenfreude, believe it or not, to use another good German word. I have no pleasure in reporting this. I'm really sorry to see this happening to what was once a fine organization. The old saying, go woke, go broke, maybe applies to them as well. But for sure, they lost the plot. And now, in my opinion, once again, they should let the place go under. And then the major senior series yacht clubs and class associations and yacht racing, which are the regional organizations of yacht racing clubs, classes, and so on, and also the community sailing associations like Oak Cliff, like Sail Newport, like Sail Long Beach, tell me who, ought to get together under New York Yacht Club's leadership, because New York needs to lead the way, and fix this with a new organization that is run by sailors for sailors, not run by a paid staff of non-sailors. Jeff Kitson, I think I can dig out one of my old U.S. YRU, meaning U.S. Yacht Racing Union hats, patch, and extra decals for maybe the next iteration resurrection. I don't care what the name is. Call it what you want. And some people don't like yacht racing. Call it a sailing federation, but call it the American Sailing Federation. Let those people get together. Let them figure it out. And when the white smoke starts coming out from underneath the conference room door, we know that they formed a new organization that will be for sailors, by sailors, for sailors. Rick Bannerell, $500K plus commuter costs covered in room and board in Bristol. Yeah, the guy wasn't even living in Bristol, Rhode Island, which is where the main office was. Rick knows that. He was commuting from New York State, charging his commuting expenses and his hotel room. He'd come over on Tuesday and leave Thursday, or Monday and leave Thursday. It's just croutonic. So that's why we've got Negat Bravo Zulu here. Baton Rouge in Charleston is saying it's unfortunate that a sailing president will take the fall when the non-sailors are long gone. Anyone on the panel? Let's start with you, Ed Worley, as an American. Any of you care to opine here?
You can't have somebody being paid in an organization that's not commensurate with what the membership is and what the finances of the organization is. I've been involved in associations, and they have this idea that you can hire some superstar, bring them in, they're going to raise all this money, and then they're going to pay themselves with the money they raised. Well, the problem is, if you have somebody who's U.S. Sailing, apparently he didn't go out and talk to the yacht clubs because he couldn't talk the talk.
That was part of the problem. Julia, you, with your long role in voluntary organizations, I'm sure you agree completely with Ed Worley.
Absolutely.
Tell us what it was like to run one of the largest voluntary organizations in the country.
Right.
Back in the day.
And what the real problem is that nobody asks the basic question, which is exactly what is this new person supposed to do?
And how much have you raised?
Yeah.
Oh, I raised 25 grand at the PT, at the school bake off.
I know.
Right?
Right.
Huh?
How many million?
Yeah.
Million?
Tell us exactly, gentlemen. Graham or Gordon Smith or Graham Sweeney care to opine on this?
Yeah, I don't understand really that much about what's going on with this, but I can see that you've got a big problem, and the problem is there's a lot of people at the top taking money, and I don't understand why you can't put that down to club level, and then have like a responsible officer for a taking of the money at club level for the club to be a member of the association, so that everybody's covered. Instead of demanding it from each individual, why being a member of a club and then that club being affiliated, you pay towards it through that way. That cuts the middleman out. The money goes directly to where it needs to go. Then you employ people that are good at what they do to put it in the right place to make it basically work. Because if it's got somebody at the top sucking the money away, he's always going to be there, and he's always going to be like a large fat mosquito filling himself up.
It's lovely. But that's
absolutely right. Go, Julia.
It's basically the job of the board, though, to set those and stick by it.
It's a long-term problem. It was aggravated, obviously, by the non-sailing CEO, then the non-sailing revenue officer, and as several of you said in the chat, Fritz Mueller, among others. It just, you got a professional staff of give or take 50 people in Bristol, Rhode Island, when the organization used to be run
by volunteers.
Yeah. We had a very small staff in Newport who pushed the papers around, who made suggestions to the executive committee and the various other committees, and the committees and the local organizations, the club classes and the local organizations of yacht clubs called YRAs, which are quite effective in this country. I mean, you go to Long Island Sound, and there's the YRA of Long Island Sound.
Right.
Here, as you know, Julia, in San Francisco Bay, there's the YRA, the Yacht Raising Association of San Francisco Bay. It's 100 clubs who get together and coordinate schedules and trade notes and information and best practices. And that there's like 36 of those around our country because it's so big. It's like the state sailing associations in Australia. Each state has their own body, and they do it. J. Frederick Bland, I completely agree. Burn it all down. Gordon Smith, you want to put an exclamation point on this for us?
I do, and it's been quite a distressing series of events to watch, and I think the difficulty for organizations like US Sailing is when you need a new chief executive. I've been always impressed with more enlightened companies, and I met a lot of them in Denmark, where they already know who the next CEO is. It's within their group or within their circle, and different members of the board have probably met them or seen them in business. So when they change CEO, they already kind of know what they're going to do, and they know their capability. And it occurs to me that this guy came quite out of left field. He came from a different sport. He as you said, he's a non-sailing CEO. I'm not sure he needs to be a big sailor, but I think I get the feeling they didn't really know what they'd bought and they'd overpaid because he doesn't seem to appreciate it. It didn't seem to bring any personal communication about what he was doing and how he was doing it.
Well, Gordon, he knew nothing about the organization.
And it's probably never run a volunteer.
And here U.S. Sailing is right out there now with another headhunter and some kind of a firm looking for somebody who's already out of a job, presumably. I totally agree with Gore. I agree with all three of the gentlemen. And I think J. Frederick Bland is also correct. The Texas Sailing Association is the biggest. That's another one of these regional sailing associations that's got, how many clubs, J. Frederick Bland? Boomer Bland, tell us. Okay, enough of U.S. Sailing. It's a sad day. Just shut it down. Start from afresh. And as Julie Aarons say, make it for sailors, by sailors. And I totally agree. Shall we take a quick look? Thanks, guys, and thanks, Julia. Shall we take a quick look into the Vendée Globe here before we move on to the jousting fest that's going on in the UK and the America's Cup? Just a quick Vendée Globe report. It's day 75. We've now got 5 finishers. Let's have a look here. You all know who won. That was Charlie Dallon almost 2 weeks ago. Now he had a big lead. And then Johan Richomme and Sebastian Simon had finished. And now Charal has finished today, much earlier today. And I'm not going to play any videos, but we told you that he was going to be next. And indeed, he was emerging relieved and happy out of a dark, windy night off Les Sables d'Olonne. Jeremy Bayou crossed the finish line of his 5th, count him, 5th Vendée Globe this morning, just after midnight UTC, to take 4th place from the record fleet of 40 starters. The elapsed time for the 48-year-old skipper of Charal, 74 days, 12 hours, 56 minutes and change, and he finishes 9 days and 17 hours, almost 10 days behind race winner Charlie Dallon on Massif Santé Prévoyance. Although he was tipped as one of the favorites, 4th place is an excellent, very hard, this is from the Vendée Globe website, very hard won result for Bayou, who on the descent down the Atlantic in the early stages of the race, in light winds, did not manage to get himself in the match with the very top group, and then was never quite able to find an option to catch up with the top trio from the Indian Ocean onwards.
Yes.
So there's the next 6, or there's really the top 6, not only the 3 who finished, plus Jeremy Bayou, who's finished, and also now Paul Meelhat has finished. Meelhat, I think it's pronounced. And he is done. Nicholas Lundven is about to finish. When I grabbed this, when I did this screen grab, he was only 27 nautical miles from the finish. And that was a couple, 3 hours ago. He may have finished in the meantime. Tell me if any of you are watching their tracker carefully. And bravo Zulu to all of them, and especially to the top 3 of the podium guys and to Charlie Dallon. And we'll keep following it. And it's in the next couple days, there's a whole bunch of boats that are going to finish, and we'll cover
Finishing that race is an accomplishment.
Indeed. Well said. And we'll cover that all on Tuesday. Julia, shall we? Any other comments? Rick Bannerow, if it's only a junket, yeah, Jody Shields, only a junket if you're not involved. That's true. Alan Long said, yeah, the guy, I think they're talking about the non-sailing CEO, had not a clue for the passion of the sport. I've said it before on here. Just imagine yourself if you were to go on to be the CEO of some sports group. I was recruited to be the CEO of the not the ITF, the what's the professional tennis group? This was after the 84, whatever it's called. Help me out in the gang or in the chat. What's the name of the professional tennis association? ATP, right? Association of Tennis Professionals.
Okay.
They're nodding their heads, yes. I was recruited to do that. And Gordon, I mean, maybe you're smart enough to go do something like that, but I'm not. I don't, and as a couple of you said, I wouldn't have had the passion. I wouldn't have had the knowledge. You don't know where the skeletons are buried. You don't know who's done what to whom.
Mm.
And as much as I love tennis, and I'm even a better, more knowledgeable hockey person, but to go around Hockey USA, when you haven't been involved,
right?
The great strength of people, when I like Harry Anderson, myself, John Bonds, other people who have led the organization by the accounts of others, not necessarily, but I would agree on most of that list.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to pat myself on the back.
Why not?
But the point is, we were on the board, we were involved in the organization, we were involved in clubs, we were past commodores of clubs, we were current active yacht racers when we took over as executive director of the organization. And
but I think, Tom,
go ahead, Gordon.
I think the point I was trying to make was, and the experience I've had with Scandinavian businesses in particular at this level, is that there aren't any surprises. So in your example of the ATP, to be part of the existing network where the board probably already knows your name, they've already been watching what you do and where you do it.
Exactly.
And it may not have been in that actual sport, but they're within their circle of knowledge and experience. So when it says, okay, we need to change tack or we need to replace something, because, okay, well, I know this guy and I've been following him. And I think, and it's continuity and knowledge of someone's actual activities rather than going out and finding a headhunter and get people to do presentations, because people can write anything they like in presentations. And I think it's the actuality of knowing what someone's done and how they behave and how they operate is what I think interests me most about how these kind of posts are fulfilled.
Yeah,
in my experience around here.
absolutely. Julia?
It's really important, but I will defend good headhunters by saying they will know the inside of that organization because they spent a lot of time doing it before they.
But you would admit, you would agree that hiring from within usually, not always.
Oh yeah, yes.
Usually is a better way to go.
Yes.
And as Gordon says, you know the person, you know what they've done. And so, you know their foibles too. You know some of them.
Right.
Okay, enough. I
Right.
don't want to get too much on this. We got other interesting things. But thank you for that, Gordon and gentlemen and Julia. Fritz Mueller, problem is if it's climbing a ladder to get to the top, it's not always based on merit, but on favors. Yeah, there's some of that too. And Peter Taylor says it's not Alan Osfield's fault or his sole fault. He had a reputation with basic due diligence. It was a hiring fail. Yes. It's on, that's what you would agree, Julia. It's
Yeah.
on the USSA board, full stop. Peter Taylor,
right.
very knowledgeable guy, good friend of Don Riley's and so on. Graham Sweeney, as a new CEO, your primary job when you start is to listen only. Then can you make a difference whether you sail or not? You don't go throwing your weight around, upsetting and sacking before you have a grasp on the wheel. And Graham, come up and elaborate on that, please, because I totally agree, Graham Sweeney. When I went in, I was behind the ears, age 24, but I knew the organization. But the first thing for the first 8 months, I didn't make any changes because I wanted to see
Right.
how it all worked from inside. Graham.
Exactly. I mean, you've got to see how it works before you change anything. And all I saw was this guy look for problems, look for people to blame, start throwing his weight around, getting rid of people left, right, and centre, and then standing on the top of the pile saying it's everyone else's fault. I mean, you can't do that. You've got to go in. You've got to listen to those people. Those people have the information you need to function. I mean, you don't really need to sail, even though maybe it helps. You're a businessman, firstly, and you have to get you have to get the whole association working. It's a functioning machine.
Exactly.
You have to get it working. You have to get the people in place. You have to get it actually moving in the right direction. But you can't do that by just walking in, sacking people, blaming people, and then going through a really expensive court case. This man was never going to survive in that state. It's ridiculous.
And the reason we now know that the current president, by the way, was pushing that court case against America One Racing, against Card et al., Bill Rue and so on, all the money guys and gals. They were pushing that because they knew they were in a serious financial problem. They knew that they hoped, both the now flicked non-sailing CEO and the current president who pushed that lawsuit, they thought by filing that lawsuit, they would get America One Racing, who have deep pockets, to settle, and they'd get some money and be able to keep the organization running. They knew it was in trouble. And I think they were just looking for a settlement, which leads us back to the America's Cup, because that may be some of the thinking that's going on there as well. So we'll get back to the Cup in a minute. Thank you for that interesting discussion, everybody. Rick Bannerow, we'll give him the last thought on this. And a sense of messaging and brand building. Not go do a Crutonic quote. I love going for a sail today. Yeah, he did. Well, it was a dweeb. He wasn't the right guy. And I'm sure he had a heart of gold. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's a guy who for sure has a heart of gold. Jon Emmett. He has, bless his heart, taken his video from Tuesday, which we ended up not running because it had some audio problems. And the audio sync's not perfect, but he went and did a voice over so we could hear what he was saying, and he did a damn good job of it. Here 'tis, the Coaching Corner with Jon Emmett.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. A magician never reveals his secrets, but today I'm going to show you a little bit about recording the video, and then I'm going to record the video. So the first thing is trying to present a story. And for me, this is always very easy. I talk about what's of interest to me, what I'm doing at the time, and actually I never prepare a script. I'm here at Castle Cove Sailing Club. We've got the working parties. And just to make sure it's only me doing it, I'm going to go and record the video on my own. I have a selfie stick, which actually fits very easily in a jacket pocket, and I extend that to the full length. Very simple. I have a DJI pocket, which I put on the end of the selfie stick. So the pocket will actually record 4K 60 frames, very high quality video. And I will go home after the working party, download it onto my laptop, but a little bit more about that later. But just twists on, make sure it's all nice and secure. And the DJI mics, I really rate. I think they're very good. Again, just a little clip-on mic. I have made mistakes before where it's not actually been fully working. So always check you've got those little lights flashing and blinking away. And that's very nearly it, me all ready to go. The beautiful thing about the DJI mic is it's got really good sound quality and it's very small. And the pocket, I can set it so the video is now recording and it will just track my face. So off I go. Today I'm going to be looking at the working party at Castle Cove Sailing Club. That beep shows the video is now recording. So we're off for a walk and a talk. And off we go for walk and a talk and the live stream. So first of all, there's a lot of people who put on these events. So Castle Cove is very much a member-driven club. If you look at the background, we've got a little whiteboard here under the lottery sign telling us what everybody's signed up to do. And it's a super friendly club, which is completely volunteer-driven. And I think it's volunteers that make it a very special club. If I just show you some of the activity which is going on, which tends to happen for 6 Sunday mornings at the beginning of the year. And it's really what makes the club thrive. And I think there's a pride in having it as your own club. So I'm not trying to get anyone's way. I think there's a bit of gardening going on here. So I'll try not to fall down the steps or distract people as they're going around their business, because really there's a lot going on. There's a huge amount going on here, and it's a very healthy situation, and especially the junior club. It's incredibly thriving at the moment. So you can come here, you know, if you're 9 or 90. So what we've got here is a little facility where the club store the sails. That's the sail loft. And then we have club boats for racing. So you don't need to hire a boat. All the rescue boats, the sport boats belong to the club. And we've also got storage for the boats to come in during the winter, so we can work on them there, which is what's going on. And if you look, there's a bit of pressure washing going on just past my van. That's the reason I'm recording this audio now, because this pressure washer was so noisy. Despite my best efforts, it made it very hard to understand the walk and talk. And Tom said he thought captions weren't particularly good. Off we go. You just saw the near miss there of the mast. I was actually responsible for dropping the mast. That was my job today. And I shouldn't say dropping, should I? That sounds like health and safety. I was responsible for lowering the mast. But I think there's something very therapeutic about this, washing the boats and just, you know, laying things up for the winter. And I actually really like washing the slipway, not only because it makes it much easier for me to walk up, but yeah, it's just nice that you feel that you've done a good job and it makes a lot of difference. So we're going down now to where the yachts are stored. There's a little bit more gardening going on here. No doubt I'll be given a job to do when I get back to the top. So you'll see that all the yachts are off the water. We crane these keel boats off ourselves, and there's actually quite a lot to do. The increased petition of the keel boats for new sailors is something we're really looking at. And Adam Bowers has been given lots of top tips for people to get into keel boats. And I'm going to be writing an article for Yachts and Yachting just to try and get the message out there. We actually do these lifts around the equinoxes. So it's the high waters. So it's September and March when it usually happens. And the keel boats are very active during the main season. A lot of people will sail keel boats as well as dinghies. And we've got the 2025 Sonata National Championships coming up. As we walk around here, we can see there's a bit more work going on. There's another club rib, and that's the crane in the background. And for those people who've watched these clips before, this is the slipway, the main slipway, where I do a lot of the videos from. And to the right-hand side, there's actually a beach. So, yeah, there's a lot of places to walk. And as you know, Castle Cove, it's a really family-friendly club. Looking forward to a very exciting 2025 season. I know I am. Anyway, what I need to do now, well, I need to walk back and actually do my duty, is think about getting this video uploaded. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of the process, not step by step, but all the things that I do. Any questions, very welcome in the comments. I'll try and answer them because I think, there's nothing stopping people doing this. Last bit of work here on the right hand side. If you look behind me, we've got the moorings and the down tackle and all those things associated with the marks. But I'm going to walk home. So this is recorded in 60 frames per second in 4K, and it's just recording on the Pocket. You can see that I've just plugged it into my laptop here with a USB cable, and that's it. I edit it on Premiere Pro, just taking the beginning and the end off the video. Although today I've put some sound on for obvious reasons. And then I upload it and I send it back to Tom by WeTransfer. It's really quick. It literally takes a minute. And I send that link to Tom by WhatsApp, but actually I could send it by email, Facebook Messenger, send him a text, whatever you want. I just copy that link and that's it. So the difference here is that for this final one, I had to do a voiceover because the sound quality wasn't that great. So I've added this sound onto the video. So that's why it's not limp synced. It's quite hard to read subtitles and say exactly the same thing. But I think that brings it nicely to an end. You can see there's a little bit more work going on here. We've got that compost heap on the right. And I'm just going to go back to looking at my mast. Any questions? Very welcome. Hope you've enjoyed the talk. Remember, sail fast, sail safe, have fun.
Maybe we can get John, if he knows how many of these segments he's done, or maybe Clark Chabin can go back when he gets, Clark's so busy, but he gets a minute, we can find out. He must have done hundreds of these as well. We've done 800 shows.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, John. And it's as that simple. I sometimes before I go to bed, the night before the show or in the morning, I get it, download it from WeTransfer is the name of it's free. If you're not using it, all day, every day, I think you get X many 3 a month or 1 a day. I don't know what it is. WeTransfer for transferring large files. And what it does, it sends an email or a text. He texts me via WhatsApp. And I get a text. I go on to WeTransfer, click it right on it, and it downloads because I got a pretty good internet connection here, gigabit internet connection. Downloads a long, 3, 4, 5 minute video at high res in 30 seconds. So it works great, and that's Jon Emmett. That's how he does it twice a week. And he's got another. We're going to show another one of his videos. The video he had done for today. We're going to show it in the final leg at the end of the show. Peter Taylor agrees WeTransfer is great. You can transfer up to 2 gigabytes for free, and you can receive any number for free. It's the transferal that costs if you want to sign in and subscribe for a bigger, more serious service. Josh Toso agrees WeTransfer is amazing for transferring large files. Stingray says, I'm with Tom. Watching Emmett videos is my favorite way to spend time. But we appreciate it very much. And you can see a little bit better how he does it. I don't know how he manages not to fall, trip,
Or
get clobbered in the head.
Get hung up.
Exactly.
Yes.
Rick Bannerow agrees that WeTransfer is less intrusive than Dropbox. Yeah, we all used to use Dropbox. I still have it, but I rarely use it now. They keep trying to get everybody to sign up to it, and it's back and forth. It keep popping up in your face. And WeTransfer is not at all intrusive.
I was trying to. I should have tried to use that with the last big file I was trying to
Speak
send.
up, Julia. With the last big
File I was trying to
There you
send
go.
somebody.
you're on that mic, that boom mic, and you start
Boom
to
mic.
talk softly, we won't hear you. I'm here for a short time. Pedro Foiling Sailor, we're watching replay going sailing with the grandkids in about half an hour. Mary Longpre, who's a photographer extraordinaire down at Balboa Yacht Club, probably in Arizona this time of year. I always use WeTransfer. It's a great service. So now you know.
Great.
There you know. That's it, Coach's Corner. But we will have another report from Jon, another video from him in the final leg at the end of the show. Thank you, Jon. And let's get to our jousting fest now. Gents in the panel, any of the three of you have anything to add or subtract from what Jon just said? Okay, hearing none, we'll
I
carry.
find my social media presence is improved by not making any.
Okay. Okay.
I think that's a good.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
Julian,
I'd just like to say, Tom, I'm sorry to interject, but I'd just like to say thank you to Jon, because he does this twice a week. I mean, and it really does fill the show in and give us that little bit of insight that we don't normally get. So it's lovely.
well, exactly, and so does Alistair. And Alistair's improving his technique and his video and audio. And these, you can now get, as you see, Jon, he actually had two of them on, one for well, he had them on for a couple of days. I won't bore you with the purposes, but and I have a set here, these wireless mics that there's 3 or 4 different companies. DJI is the company he's using. The Rode, RODE, Australian company, and a couple others make these little tiny mics that are battery operated. You clip them on here. That's the transmitter. The receiver you can plug into the bottom of your phone. You can plug into your camera, plug into whatever you're using to do the filming on, and wirelessly, seamlessly, and high quality audio from your lapel to your camera. And that's, you can see Jon with the little fuzzy cat,
Right.
the little windscreen on it. And there are several others. In fact, there's one that's just come out that is so small. It's smaller than a lavalier microphone like you see the TV presenters using. It's so small and so good. It's just come out in the last couple of weeks, and I maybe have to get a set of those as well. But nonetheless, thanks, Jon, for that. Let's go to our main segment today. The nights go dark on each other. And I was asking Gordon and Graham and Ed last night and a few others, what should the show claim be at the bottom? I wanted to show a nice picture of these guys. They used to be friends when it was better times, but this astounding announcement that came out yesterday, we weren't that astounded by it, to be honest. As you heard, Julia, as you know, we talked about on this show.
We did.
You and I talked about it pre-show. We said there's trouble in the British America's Cup scene. We knew that the Challenger of Record was going to have trouble with whatever team they went with raising money, because either Sir Jim was backing off. I didn't know that he and Ben were going to come completely apart. That was news to me, as I'm sure it was for most of you yesterday when the news came out. But there it is. You have it. They have come apart, and they are now jousting. And it's a war of words so far, as you've heard both Magnus the Magnificent say, and if you read his blog posts on the Rule 69 blog, and also Richard Gladwell has written a long and superb article. We'll refer to that in a moment. But it's 2 nights going at it. And of course, in the meantime, Ineos, Britannia, which was their jointly managed, owned team, I don't know who actually owned it. We don't know who owns the IP. We don't know to whom the sailors or design team are or will be loyal or are otherwise committed. But the team is clearly capsized. And the headline that Richard Gladwell went with in his story today on sail-world.com, the America's Cup, Ainsley firing, the firing of Ainsley is what he means there, sparks a civil war between two now seriously flawed British teams. And he goes and he uses the metaphor of the War of the Roses, which of course was the British Civil War, almost 1,000 years ago, long time ago.
The America's
I didn't
Cup.
do the setup properly for this. So Yachts and Yachting and Sail World have teamed up and have been doing these videos, which you see we've been using for, these guys have been doing a good job on the Vendée Globe, but they're also starting to cover other things. And they've covered the War of the Roses as well.
That's good.
The America's Cup world and that British sailing in general was shaken by the news on Thursday that Sir Jim Ratcliffe's Ineos Britannia had parted ways with its principal, CEO and skipper Sir Ben Ainsley. On the face of it, the 37th America's Cup campaign was a success, winning the Louis Vuitton Cup and taking races off the Defender, 2 races, which was the best performance in 90 years by a British campaign. But there were reports of tensions behind the scene, particularly after the poor performance in the preliminary regatta before the America's Cup actually started. So this news, while shocking, doesn't come as a full surprise. The quote from Sir Jim Ratcliffe, chairman of Ineos, in the statement was as revealing in so much as to what he didn't say, as well as what he did. I am enormously proud of what we achieved in Barcelona in developing a British boat that was truly competitive for the first time in decades. It set new benchmarks for British sailing, including winning the Louis Vuitton Cup for the first time and taking races off the Defender in the final for the first time in 90 years. We will now build upon this for the 38th America's Cup through the Ineos Challenge and have already 100 scientists and engineers working on the design of our AC38 yacht. No thanks to Ben or any of the sailing team were in the statement. The response from Sir Ben Ainsley's team said they were astounded by the future plans Ineos had for the America's Cup, and it raises significant legal and practical obstacles for them. Richard Gladwell, sailworld.com's New Zealand editor, has written an excellent article on the matter, which goes through some of the things that have been said, who's replaced who in Ineos Britannia, and also just some of the history that's led up to this point. And also it goes into the what is going to happen next, because we've got now this Athena racing team, which is Sir Ben Ainsley's team, and Ineos Britannia. Do we now have 2 campaigns, British campaigns, for the 38th America's Cup? And also Ineos Britannia, through Royal Yacht Squadron Limited, are the challenger of record for the 38th America's Cup. Who is going to actually be the team which ends up being the challenger of record? And so there are many, many questions that need to be answered, and we're going to see how this all plays out. And Richard goes into some of the details as to what this may be. A link to this story is in the description of this video. We will continue to keep you posted as this story continues to develop. No doubt over the days and coming weeks there's going to be developments, and we will see what happens with what may be 2 British America's Cup campaigns. Do also take a look at sailworld.com and yachtsandyachting.com, where we bring you so much more from the world of sailing and also the America's Cup. And please do subscribe to our channel using the button down here.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. Thank you, Mark Jardine. Okay, he kind of put it together, and then he got off the track at the end because some of the stuff he's talking about, he just does not understand fully. So a lot of questions are popping up in the chat. That's one of the reasons why we have our experts here as well with joining us on the Zoom. We'll get to them in a sec, but let me just start out by saying, you call the last campaign a success. This is part of, and you Brits that are on watching the show, we love you all, but calling that a successful campaign when you don't win the America's Cup is part of what has been the problem for the Brits over the last 170 years. A success is when you win the cup, not the Louis Vuitton Cup, not get to the finals. That's a success. The second point is he says the challenger of record is the Ineos Britannia team. It's not. The challenger of record is the Royal Yacht Squadron and their representative team. And they can decide, if they want, to have a runoff between various teams, British or otherwise. The team ultimately has to meet whatever nationality rule there is as to probably just sailors. But remember, New York Yacht Club for 132 years had a runoff, had a Defender Trials. The Defender Trials continued when we were running it in San Diego, except for not in 88, there was one team, but even that team, Team Dennis Conner, Stars and Stripes, built 2 catamarans for the 88 Deed of Gift match and raced the hard wing catamaran off against the soft wing catamaran. So there was some internal competition on the defense side. And then, of course, beat the Kiwis, the big boat, 1-on-1 in big. And then we went, I was running the campaigns, the defenses, and I went back and insisted we have a multiple Defender series. And we did in 92. And we won. And then we, just like New York, emulating what New York did. Then we had a multiple defense series in 95 and lost badly to the Kiwis, who by then had gotten the AC, that was the not the 12 meters anymore. That was the IACC boats. And Russell Coutts and co came to town in Black Magic in 95 and won really well, 5-0 in the finals. They took the cup back to New Zealand, and there has not been a defense trials since, because the yacht club selects the team, or the team selects the yacht club and says, hey, you give us all the power. If you want us to come fund the team, and Larry Ellison did the same thing with the Golden Gate Yacht Club, but we will be your sole team. We're going to have maybe some internal competition where we build multiple boats or have internally some competition, but we're not going to fathom, we're not going to have any other teams competing with us for the right to represent you. And that is the way Ineos Britannia was last time with the Royal Yacht Squadron, and I suspect will be again this time. So let's see how that's all going to pan out. And I think you will see that on the Royal Yacht Squadron webpage, the only mention as of this morning, and this came on their webpage yesterday afternoon. You see down there in the lower left corner where it says Team Update. Mm-hmm. That is the Sir Ben Ainslie Athena statement. So it looks like the Royal Yacht Squadron has picked sides, has said Sir Ben is our team, the Athena Challenge, what was Athena Racing, is our team, not Ineos Britannia. And it's the Royal Yacht Squadron that is the challenger of record. Mm-hmm. They have the absolute right, you in the chat are asking questions and answering, they have the absolute right to decide their own team, who will be their representative team. And they have the right also to decide if they're going to have some kind of a runoff and invite multiple teams to come and sail in some kind of a trials for that club before they put one of those teams forward. Even as a challenger, they have the right to do that. So Yar Vahe is saying the RYS, the Royal Yacht Squadron, are nailed to Ben. Well, we'll see how long that lasts, Yar. And yesterday, those of you who are on the panel will know we had a bit of a discussion on Facebook Messenger with the three of you and others. And Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin pointed out, and I see that Magnus picked this up in his latest article, and Andrew McIrvin, who is a member of the squadron, he said, Ben is a full member of the squadron. Mm-hmm. Jim is an honorary member of the squadron. Mm-hmm. And Andrew opined yesterday he didn't see how the squadron would go with anybody other than Ben. But it's early days, ladies and gentlemen, and I've been in this movie most of my adult life, not anymore, thank goodness. I'm here as a member of the Fourth Estate with Julia doing our silly sailboat show here, live sailboat show with a bunch of cool people watching and participating. But it looks like the squadron so far are assuming Ben is their team. And the squadron leadership, the head guy there is another good guy. I don't know if Bertie's been on the show or not, but we know him well, Bertie Bickett. and he is the chairman of the Royal Yacht Squadron Limited, which is the company they set up to organize and manage the America's Cup effort on behalf of the Royal Yacht Squadron. And he's also a flag officer of the squadron, or was. I can't remember now. J. Frederick Bland is saying the king should just write a check from his personal fortune and fund the team. Athena, pocket change to the richest monarch on the planet. So that's Bertie Bickett, chairman of Royal Yacht Squadron Limited. Then you'll ask, well, what about the sailors? And there's been a lot made by Richard Gladwell and others, including Magnus, about who will the sailors be loyal to. And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter. And I'll tell you why in a moment. But the sailors, and there's a bunch of good ones, Dylan Fletcher there, and guys that are, and gals that are with the team, were with the team, might come back with the team. But which team? We'll see. But it's not the sailors that make a successful America's Cup team, and it's not the sailors who make the decision. Today, Fosie Magnus Wheatley put out another blog post on Substack, and he ended by saying the hope is that this doesn't all turn into some legal spat. Well, I can guarantee you it is going to. I know people at the top table who absolutely, Magnus is now being very magnanimous here, no pun intended, who absolutely rate both Jim and Ben professionally and personally, meaning rate in the British sense, of the meaning rate well.
Yeah.
Their reputations are solid in the cup game, you think? Appreciated, admired, never let that not be said. What both men have done for British sailing is absolutely immense and far more than any of us will ever achieve in a lifetime. Well, okay, speak for yourself, Magnus. There's a whole new generation about to come through, and if we do see two teams, that's double the opportunity for those talented foiling kids about to burst through and take their opportunity. Well, that's an interesting point, but are there going to be two British teams or two teams? Plenty of options are on the table now for both parties. The brouhaha the last 24 hours needs to subside and cool heads prevail. British sailing needs to come out as the winner in all of this, and I guarantee you British sailing is not going to come out the winner. These are two ego-driven, senior serious guys, and I've been in this movie since 1980, and it's going not to be about the best cyclers. It's not going to be about the best sailors. It's going to be about something else, and it always is, it always has been, and it always will be. This is the War of the Roses verbiage that Richard Gladwell's excerpting from his long and excellent article, Loyalty Over Money, he's saying. And I think he means a question mark after that. The 15th century War of the Roses, as the Civil War in England was known, was over control of the English throne, where noblemen picked red or white roses to symbolically display their loyalty to either the Lancastrian or Yorkist faction. 700 years later, in the equivalent battle, loyalty will again likely play a big role unless it is gazumped by money.
What a great word.
Gazumped. You know that word, right?
Yeah.
If it's trumped, he doesn't want to use the word Trump, probably.
No.
And you see Graham Sweeney smiling. Again, I'm going to come to you guys in a sec. Unless it is gazumped by money. And I guarantee you, all of you watching, that there is a rule in the America's Cup, and it's called the Golden Rule. He or she who has the gold makes the rules.
You said that for a long time.
And if Ben ends up with the gold, if for some reason, somehow, if Sir Keith Mills or somebody comes along, another billionaire, and it's possible, comes along, who then also has a design team or access to a design team quickly. It takes years to build a design team, not months, not days or weeks. It takes years to build up a design team. And the gentleman on the right in this image, in this photo, has billions. He knows how to run sports teams, maybe not entirely successfully, but he knows how to run them. He's got experience running big sports teams. He's got a design team. He's got out at Brackley the Mercedes F1 connection. And for Ben to try to start up a team and go against this guy is going to be very difficult indeed. Now, if the Royal Yacht Squadron sticks with Ben, and I know a lot of you in the UK, including Magnus and others, hope that happens because of Ben's huge success in the Olympics, and he's a nice guy and a great sailor. And remember, I've won the America's Cup with Ben as well. I was there when Russell and Larry fired John Kostecki and brought Ben onto the boat. Ben and I were back as mates on the side through all of that. And putting Ben on the boat was a big part of the reason we won in 2013. So the guy is right. But as Yarvahi is saying, at the end of the day, in my never so humble opinion, might is right. And the golden rule is he who has the gold makes the rules. So there's some other possibilities here, and I'm going to get the panel to respond to all this in a moment. It's possible that Sir James Ratcliffe, he goes by Sir Jim, it's possible he might go challenge for another club. He might. It's possible that Ben never raises the money. DBA, the representative doing business as the representative team of the Challenger of Record, never raises the money, and the COR doesn't end up fielding a team and has to drop out as the Challenger of Record. That has happened before, several times, as Ed Worley will tell you, in the modern history of the Cup. We've all lived through that, me included.
Yep.
When I was the defender and signing up Challengers of Record. So that's a possibility. It's possible that Grant Dalton, who, by the way, one hears, left New Zealand in a rush yesterday when all this broke out. He, and I'm not sure if Russell Green's also on the plane with him or was on because I was told by a birdie in New Zealand that Russell Green was also with him. That's their rules guy, my longtime friend, compatriot in the judging and umpiring and rules world, that Russell went with him. And they're up there, I'm sure, trying to sort this out, because if they lose their Challenger of Record and have to reform this thing, come up with somebody else, it could be anybody. One of these clubs could already have lodged, and we don't know about it, a rogue challenge. And if the Challenger of Record falls out of bed, that rogue challenge would be the second one in and would take precedence. And we've seen that happen before, too. It could also be that Grant Dalton sells the event, even the defense, to somebody who's got a lot of money. Stranger things have been discussed. I haven't seen it happen. But Julia, as you know, when you sat with me through this stuff on and off over the last X many years, there was discussion of Larry Ellison, for example, being the defender for the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron when Russell and his tight five left to go sail for Ernesto. We're down there in 2003 as the Challenger lost. We thought, well, maybe we should move our team, meaning Oracle BMW Racing, whatever we were called then, over to the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron and be their representative team and be guaranteed to be in the defense in 2007. So this has been talked about. This is not Blue Fairy madness, and I guarantee you all these discussions are going on. And I guarantee you that the Royal Yacht Squadron is between a rock and a proverbial hard place.
Keeps the press coming, though.
Well, some of you said all ink is ink, but this is one of the fascinating things about the America's Cup. J. Frederick Bland says, bingo, bingo. Grant Dalton sells out and walks away with his fortune. At Stingray, at Bertie Bickett's house last night. Knock, knock. Hello, who's there? Dalton Mateo. Apparently Mateo Denora went as well, and Russell Green. And Bertie is saying, oh, shit. Bertie opens and runs out the back door, keeps running through the darkness. Stingray, that's one of the cleverest things you put up there. And then J. Frederick Bland is asking, what about Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli? Well, and I hope our panelists are forming their opinions. I'll come to you in a sec. LRPPs, there's another problem there. Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. And I guess I'm not telling anything that's not very well known within Italy and maybe even to many of you here on the chat and on the show. Mr. Bertelli, Patrizio Bertelli, not to be confused with Ernesto Bertarelli, the Swiss winner of the Cup in 2007. Mr. Bertelli is seriously ill. He has got a serious form of cancer, or so I'm reliably informed by any number of people, and he's not well. His son has been attending all of the meetings, and whether by phone or Zoom or even in Barcelona before everybody broke up, representing Mr. Bertelli, and whether Patrizio is able to carry on in the America's Cup world, indeed whether LRPP carries on in the America's Cup world, remains to be seen. The word is that the son, the Patrizio's son, is more interested in car racing than he is in boat racing. So there's also a...
we couldn't leave it simple. We have to make it more
this
complicated.
This is the America's Cup. This is the American Cup boat races, people call it. It's the intrigue, and people hate it, but they also love it, and it's going to continue. And again, don't forget that in the America's Cup, there is this golden rule, as there is in, sorry, sad to say, in much of life. He who has the gold, and at least in business deals and these sorts of things, makes the rules. Julie Aaron says, this is not a new occurrence at Ineos. It has been a long time coming. The differences are always about money, but there are philosophical differences. I can also say that there were apparently, I'm reliably informed by people in and around and on the boat, this past Cup on Ineos's boat, that there were lots of people who agreed with me who thought Ben should step off the boat and let Dylan Fletcher, who's having a fantastic go in SailGP, and others drive the boat, and Ben should run the campaign. And that is also apparently part of the discussion that is going on or was going on between these two guys heretofore. Stingray is asking, could Ernesto go file a provisional challenge inside the RYS? They could. And what would happen is the same thing when I filed, when Golden Gate Yacht Club, when Melinda Erklins and I went up and filed a challenge, a provisional challenge, because remember, Ernesto had created a yacht club called Club Náutico de Español, Club Náutico, whatever it was, CNEV, Club Náutico Español de Vela, whatever it was, CNEV.
Yeah.
It was a fake yacht club. It never had an annual regatta. They were going to control everything about the Challenger of Record relationship because they had created this Challenger of Record out of whole cloth. And we went up and filed a challenge with Société Nautique Genève, SNG. This challenge was rejected out of hand. We went to court and enforced the challenge, and the court held that CNEV
wasn't a real yacht club.
Was not a real yacht club, and exactly right, and that we were the viable, legal first-in challenger. That was Golden Gate Yacht Club. And that's how we became the challenger leading up to 2010. Same thing could happen here. Somebody files a challenge now, and then the Royal Yacht Squadron falls out of bed because they don't have a team. Guess who's going to be the challenger of record? And it's not necessarily the club that Grant Dalton and the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron had in mind, because it might be somebody who's very antagonistic and not very cooperative and is trying hard to win, harder to win than maybe previous challengers of records have. Stingray says, I remember the photo of Melinda Erklins turning that challenge in, photo by Tom. Yes, I took that photo on my little Canon camera, and I have it somewhere, but we don't need to talk about that. Let's go to our esteemed panel of Gordon Smith in the lower left corner and Ed Worley in the lower right corner, and Graham Sweeney, who you may recall were with us during the watch parties, Julia. Remember all those watch parties we did?
31 of them.
31 of them, and you're exactly right. And let's start with Graham, because he's in my square here in my camera, scene 7. Already on the air. Graham, your analysis, your thoughts on all this I've just said and more.
Well, you're pretty right, aren't you, with what you said? I think it's pretty much a fustercluck.
A fustercluck.
It's a
fustercluck of magnificent proportions.
Yes. And you know, I feel that if they couldn't get together on something, there was obviously something wrong from the start. And I had a feeling right at the very beginning of the America's Cup that there was something not right with the team. Ben seemed too distant from the rest of the team, whereas everyone else was it was obvious that everyone was chipping in and doing the thing, and Ben was pretty much just turning up, stepping on the boat, and going racing, and he didn't seem to be part of the party, if you know what I mean. So I feel there was something wrong there, and especially when Scott got off the boat. I mean, there was something that happened all of a sudden, and we've got to remember these boats. Everything that happens on these boats, the heart rate, everything is monitored and measured. Now, if any of those people on board those boats are not up to the very, very peak of their performance, it will show. So has it come to a point where Mr. Ratcliffe has looked at these telemetrics and gone, you know what, Ben's not pulling his weight. There's maybe somebody who's better than Ben, and he's had a meeting with Ben and turned around and said to him, you know what, you need to step aside. You need to take the manager role, and get off the boat. And I've got a feeling.
And maybe, Graham, and you're spot on, I think. Maybe he said to Ben, au contraire, we're going to have David Endine, the Kiwi, who's from this famously good Kiwi sailing family, Richard Endine and Bill Endine, I think was the Commodore of the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, and they're all related. Ben, I'm sorry, but David Endine is going to be he's been the COO of that challenge. He's going to be the CEO, and you, Ben, are going to be the sailing master, sailing director, and not run the team. And maybe Ben said, no way. Yeah. And maybe Ben's wife said, no way. What do you think of that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe. But then Ben probably looks at it and goes, well, if you won't give me the money to do the job, I'll go to Emirates. You know, there's
because Emirates is not only closed up with Grant Dalton, and I'm sure Grant Dalton would love to have Ben Ainslie in the Cup and the squadron in the Cup. I'm sure he would love to have them. He'd probably rather face them than to face Sir Jim Ratcliffe in the finals of the Cup, because Sir Jim is just so tough. Not that Ben isn't tough, but so Ben gets Emirates. Keith Mills, I mean, he has raised money in the past.
So imagine this. So Ben gets into Emirates, it brings it into the whole family. So now Daltz has got the whole campaign. I mean, pretty much. And it might be what he's after. I mean, we can surmise left to right and centre on this, but it really boils down to money. I personally do not think that the United Kingdom can host two teams and get something to the America's Cup. I do not think it's within us to do that. You can take me on a lamppost and hang me for it if you like, but I feel that is just a little bit too far. We've never managed to do it. Every campaign we've ever pushed forward has been a struggle. Now, this campaign was absolutely as far as we've ever dreamed to go. I mean, it was an amazing campaign, but it's as far as we got, and we just weren't good enough. We just didn't get far enough. So for them two to split up now makes it not only just two teams, but it's going to be a minefield of technologies, a minefield of copyright, a minefield of who's got rights to do what and where. And this is just going to drag two teams down to nothing. I mean, I'm sure Mr. Ratcliffe just wants his money back, and he really doesn't really care too much for running a team. He's just saying that because if he's got a viable team, someone will buy it. So
Graham, let me ask you this. Do you think Alex Hayworth, who's a Brit, who's very close to the British team, by the way, and has been a good source of interesting information and thoughts and speculation over the years, he's saying a coalition of funders for Athena Racing, if that were to happen, if Mr. Mills or any of these people came in with real money, other billionaires, somebody else came along. What if Ernesto came and bought? This is possible. What if Ernesto came and bought Ben's team, in effect, and patted Ben on the head and said, okay, let's keep going, Ben, keep the sailors. I'll bring my design program in from the last Cup. This is well within the realm of possibility. Do you think that a coalition of funders or somebody else could come in and back Ben against Sir Jim at this point?
It all depends what Ben owns. I mean, who's got the boat? Who's got all the data? Who's got all the technology?
Who's got the IP? Who's got the boat? Who's got the design stuff from
Yeah.
the last campaign? Exactly.
This could mean that they don't make the next campaign because they'll be still fighting this out in the courts. It could be the end of maybe several campaigns. We may not see the Brits back on the course for quite a while because of this.
Well, one of the things
but-
Magnus said, and I'm not familiar with the British legal system. Certainly not as familiar. Well, I'm not at all. I can tell you how long this would take in the New York courts, but this may be contractual. This may be contractual law in the UK between these two guys and the squadron. No doubt there's a deal between Ineos Britannia and the squadron from the last Cup that is carried over. Remember on November 8th, whenever it was, when the Challenger of Record was finally announced, it was announced that the Royal Yacht Squadron and their representative team, Ineos Britannia, would be going forward to AC38. Now it looks like the squadron is siding with Athena Racing, with Ben, but maybe there's contractual issues here that they've got, that is the squadron, with Sir Jim. So this is a mess.
It would be very interesting to know how close the divide is between the Royal Yacht Squadron and the Royal Yacht Squadron Limited, because between the two of them, I would be sure that the Royal Yacht Squadron would like to keep that buffer of distance for financial reasons, just in case things go wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Yarvahe is also making another point, and I, again, having been in this movie for 40 years, Yarvahe JF, meaning Sir Jim, owns the IP. Inconceivable otherwise. That is, somebody gives £250,000 to these two, I think it was two efforts, not just one, that he doesn't come out owning the IP. I guarantee you Larry Ellison ended up with the IP, and that's why SailGP now has the television IP that they do. Okay. Anything else, Graham? Because I want you to also think about. I'm going to come back to you in a minute. I want you to say, not now, but after we go to Gordon and Ed, tell me what you think should happen when I come back to you in a moment. Okay?
Yep. Thank you.
Let's go to Gordon. Gordon Smith, who is a Brit. So Graham's a Brit living in Scotland. We got a Brit living in Denmark, and we got a wannabe Brit, Ned Worley, I think. Very civil and proper guy. There's Graham with his pillow. Gordo, ensconced in Denmark, outside Copenhagen. How's it look to you from where you're sitting?
Well, it's cold, wet, and dark outside, but I think it's a very interesting situation. I think I find very interesting in the press and Richard Gladwell's report that I read last night is that people are somewhat Jarvahi has just pointed out something I thought, but now I think it's clear, is that Ineos Britannia owns the IP, and that wouldn't surprise me. There's two. I think some people think Ineos was sponsoring Ben, and I think, which is absolutely not the case. Yeah. I think some people thought that Sir Jim Ratcliffe was kind of a visiting, I'm just here to splash a couple of quid around guy. I think that's incorrect. I also am of the opinion that people are misinterpreting a spat, the outcome of an argument in an office one lunchtime. They're painting a picture of a little of something that's a decision that was made in a very short term. One thing that is, I think people might want to appreciate, is that whether you think Ratcliffe's all of his sporting success has not been successful, he is a great deal maker. He's a very successful businessman, and you only hear later what his plan was. He executes beautifully. So he wouldn't have had an argument to lead to a breakup. He would have avoided that until he was ready to do something. So in this case, he already knows what he's doing. You just don't know what it is.
Yeah, and Ben didn't know what it was.
If you have this IP and the boats and the technical team, I made a little joke, I think, last night, Tom. I think I called it the Mary Celeste. I've got a boat, but there's no crew. And it was a joke because I think he already knows who he's going to sail for, and he already knows who's going to be sailing the boat.
Okay, let's talk about that for a sec, because Richard Gladwell is on now, and he has made the point, and I don't necessarily agree with Richard. I rarely disagree, but in this case, he is saying for all his money, Ratcliffe's options are severely constrained by the crew nationality rules. He can't hire a multinational team. Well, Richard, that's assuming he's challenging for the UK or for the Royal Yacht Squadron. But what if he takes his team and his IP and challenges for tell me who? Maybe he goes to the New York Yacht Club. Maybe he teams up with Ernesto and challenges through Switzerland and takes Swiss sailors. This thing, that you all and Gordon, you're thinking outside the box. I think you're absolutely right. This is a much bigger tableau on which this story will be written, right?
Correct. And I did, I was having a little brainstorm, thinking to myself, I wonder what his plan is. And I thought, could it be Saudi Arabia? Could it be the Jeddah Yacht Club? Because that would suit both Mercedes and Ineos. Ineos have a business plan in refining and running, and looking at Aramco and the money they have to provide to the Saudi government. Aramco must now be looking at their refining facilities and wondering which ones are aging a bit, whose products they're going to supply to who. And that's where Jim Ratcliffe makes a fortune. And Mercedes has been very favourable towards motor racing in Saudi Arabia, and their cars sell like hotcakes. So when you spin it out like that, you start to think, there are possibilities. The catch, of course, is the nationality rule and sailors. So to that extent, I am interested to know what he thinks he's going to do to solve that issue.
Good points. Good points all around. Ed Worley, thank you, Gordon Smith. Ed Worley, you've been a student of this game for a long time. You've been in the game back in the 80s and been following it very closely since. What's your analysis?
I forget who said that, hope that you live in interesting times. I forget where that quote comes from, but as complicated as the America's Cup's been over the years, and if you go way back, people will remember that there was the Boston Yacht Club tried to be one of the defenders of the New York Yacht Club with the boat Independence, and the New York Yacht Club turned them down because they didn't want a outside yacht club participate, even though the owner of Independence was a member of the New York Yacht Club. All the different PowerPoints that are going around and the things that we don't know what's been agreed is I agree with you, it's contractual law. Because how can Ben and the guys spin up a challenge so quickly? It's going to take $100 million, pounds, or whatever else you want to talk about.
Exactly.
But as we've always said, and as all us America's Cup guys said, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you can't buy time. And that's what I mean. A lot of America's Cup challenges had the technology, but they could never implement it in time to get it on the boat in time, to test it in time. Look at USA with Tom Blackaller.
Well, exactly, and more than that, your point is so valid because it takes a long time to set up a team. And that's why people tend to do and plan on multiple challenges. I mean, look at how long did it take Sir Thomas Lipton to ultimately fail? He went 5 times. How many times has Patrizio Bertelli gone and he's failed? How many times did it take Larry Ellison? 03, 07, we finally won in 10, defended in 13, and then he lost it in 17. Ernesto's the only one who won it on the first crack after he took Russell and his tight 5 to Switzerland, and there was no nationality rule. And we were the challenge.
Right.
I was representing Golden Gate Yacht Club as the challenger of record, and we wiped out the challenge, the nationality rule, such as it was. And they went to Switzerland, sailed for Switzerland, and Ernesto was the only one who won it on his first go. And then he defended it on his first in 07 and then lost it in 10. But again, he bought in effect, not only a sailing team, but a design team, because the design team went with him too, and they were way ahead of the park. So the biggest problem they've got, that Sir Ben's got, is time, trying to organize. The biggest problem, as Richard Gladwell and others keep pointing out, and this is only if Ratcliffe decides to be a British team, his biggest problem is sailors of the respective nationality. That's his, But again, he's got money. And if you think, I go back to that picture of all those guys and gals standing in a kind of a V formation with Sir Ben, and I can't remember who else was at the head of that V, but I'm sorry, I've seen it over and over and over again, and I can tell you I'm one of the few people who did not have his head turned by offers of big money. When Bruce Farr and I had done the 3 and 7 campaigns together with Larry, and Bruce didn't think Larry could ever win it, and Patrizio Bertelli had made a big offer to Bruce Farr, and Bruce said, yeah, okay, I'll come to you, but I'm bringing this guy Eamon because I've come, this is when Bruce and I were, originally arch rivals and enemies and so on. But we became best friends during the Oracle years, and he said, Eamon's going to come with me. And he called me up and said, I got a deal. You don't even have to give me 20% of the deal. It's a rich deal. We're going to go work for Ernesto, for Patrizio. And I said, no way. I've only worked for American clubs, and I'm only going to continue to work for American clubs. But you go ahead. And of course he didn't then. But that's another story. But you think that any of these kids, I mean kids, meaning they're not our age, 60, 70 years old,
80,
whatever. Do you think any of these kids, given an offer of a shaky, are you really going to raise the money? I don't know if we're going to raise the money, loyalty to Sir Ben, which I understand and I appreciate, versus, hey, here is a contract for a couple $100,000 a year going forward. I mean, excuse me, money talks, I'm sorry. And I've seen it over and over and over again. And we all have. I mean, it's like Russell and his tight five going to work for Ernesto. They didn't have any money in New Zealand. Okay, Fritz Mueller's got to go. Will Birdie be moving next door to a larger mansion? Stingray's asking funny questions. Alex Hayworth is saying Artemis Technology Partnership will really help Sir Ben. Yeah, I saw that speculation by Magnus the Magnificent in his piece today. But excuse me, Alex, that still is a team that has to start up from virtually scratch. So it's a big ask. It's tough. They're going to move to Portsmouth and go back into that building. What boats are they going to have? Who owns the boats? I think Gordon is right. I think the IP and the boats and so on, the assets are owned by Sir Jim. Wrap it up.
Hey, Tom.
Please.
The weirdest thing that could happen is Sir Ben Ainslie and the Royal Yacht Squadron may buy the design package from Team New Zealand, like the French did, to get started.
How'd that work for the French?
Well, that at least gives them a start. But because the other thing everybody has to think about also is all these sailors have to sign contracts pretty soon about where they're going to go. Because what's going to happen is all the doors are going to slam shut pretty soon here, and it's going to be like you're going to run out of places to go because there won't be any more offers.
And then there's Gordon Smith. Julia's 80. No, she's 85. Soon to be 86. Gordon Smith. He's marveling at Julia's age, aren't you, Gordon? She's going to turn 100 before we're done doing these shows.
Before this cup is over.
Now here, sorry, Ed, you're absolutely right. But here's the other thing. Put yourself now in Sir Ben's place. He wants to stay in the game. He wants to keep some money coming in for himself and his wife and their kid. And he says, well, it's better to be in the game with no chance of winning than to not be in the game. And I'll raise a minimal amount of money. We'll get a design package from Grant Dalton from the Emirates Team New Zealand. And Grant wants another team. He'd love to have another team. He'd love to have as many teams as he can. So they just do a minimal effort, sort of like the French, sort of like, tell me who, coming in and not really a competitive effort, but at least he's in the game. At least he's drawing a paycheck and he's helping to send some money to some of his mates. Okay, we've beaten that one pretty well to death, haven't we? Let's go back around the horn with our distinguished panel. Julie, do you want to add anything else to this before I go ask the gentlemen what they think?
Not really. I don't think I have anything really positive to give to it.
Yarvahe says Tom's close here. I don't know what that exactly means, but thank you for that. Let's go back now and go to Graham. Graham, what would you like to see happen?
Well, I would like to see a team go forward. Which one, I don't really care. As long as there's a good team goes forward and goes for the cup, that's all that really matters to me. But we have a problem here. And I mean, this problem is the United Kingdom isn't as big as it likes to be.
Mm.
And we do not have billionaires coming out of our ears. We only have a few of them. We don't have that many, not like the United States. We're a small country. So it's ludicrous thinking that in the UK we can go and find ourselves another billionaire that will go and do this, because they're rare enough as it is. You know, it's like fitting tits to a snake. It's pointless. I mean,
Can we
it's
quote
ridiculous.
you on that?
You can indeed,
That might
sir.
be the lower third on Tuesday's show. Oh, no,
And I'll take it away from
we have
Julia
Cole
for the
Brower
case.
on. We're not going to do that.
No.
Fitting tits to a snake?
Yeah,
It's pointless?
it's pointless. You know,
Except at the end.
What? Julia, does
We
that
changed.
deserve a finger wag? Or he get away with that?
Oh, he's so cute. We'll have to let him
He's
go.
so cute.
Get away with it.
He's,
So to sum it up, Tom, I think the splitting of this original team is the death knell. Ben may come back, but he won't be sailing for UK, and he won't be sailing for Emirates. He might be sailing for Emirates or for someone else, for Bertarelli, but it will not be a UK team. I feel that this is the end of it.
okay. Gordon, what do you think will happen? What would you like to see happen?
I'd like to see the Royal Yacht Squadron partner with Ineos Britannia and get on with it and find young, exciting blood and continue to work on the IP and the structures and the management that they've got. I think that would be a fantastic result. But I don't know that's Ratcliffe's plan. I'm waiting to find out. And I think in all reality, I think Sir Ben has not very attractive outlook right now, would be my reading.
If you were a yacht club, let's say you are the Cowes Corinthian Yacht Club or the Royal Thames Yacht Club, or tell me who would you rather have as your representative team at this point?
Well, I think the Royal Yacht Squadron and Ineos Britannia is my answer,
No,
but maybe
forget
I've
about this.
misunderstood the question.
Let's say that people now, smart people, say, "Hey, I see an opportunity here. Let's call up Sir Jim if he's having an argument with the squadron, and if they're putting on their webpage that they're teamed up now with Athena Racing, and you're the Royal Thames Yacht Club." Why wouldn't you go after Sir Jim Ratcliffe and say, "Jim, come challenge through us, and we'll have a British team and challenge through us"?
Well, I certainly think that could be a thing, but I think he already knows the answer. He knows the answer, and obviously the club knows the answer, but we don't know yet.
Yeah, you
That
may
would be my
right.
argument.
He may, but you know, the other thing, again, having hung out with Ellison and a few of these other rich, smart people, and I said this to Julia the other day, Larry Ellison's brain is wired at a megahertz or two faster than most of the rest of us. And I think I'm pretty quick on the uptake, but look, he makes me look like a piker. And I guarantee you that part of their success is not, as you pointed out so well, not only do they have a plan, but they are ready, fire, aim. They can launch the plan and then, then quickly change it according to, just like good sailors do when they see there's a wind shift or a change in the sea state. I think he also is probably ready, fire, aim.
That would exactly be kind of the philosophy or the thought that I'm putting forward, is that they're prepared, they have a plan that they want to execute on, they know how to execute on it, but they also know how to change plan, and it's not the way most people are talking about this situation. And I think you're absolutely right, Tom, and Ellison would be another excellent example.
Mark Holland is saying over the years, and he knows, Mark's as you all know, is a student of maybe the one of the top handful of students in our sport of the Cup. Over the years, challengers have simply vaporized from the list, and usually over the total absence or relative absence of money. This could easily just mean that AC38 does not even have a UK entry. Julie, you're nodding your head
Okay.
yes. Now go ahead, Gordon.
On this point, I was also going to bring up, I think people kind of misunderstand Radcliffe's intent. He owns a good chunk of the Mercedes F1 racing team.
Exactly.
And, you know, he buys things not because he wants to lose money. He buys things for purpose. And so to assume this is, I'm going to drift in or out, is not understanding what he's doing with his businesses. And to say, oh, Manchester United are not top of the league right now, he's working on that. He's active on it, and he bought. They all knew that the problems of Manchester United were extraordinarily deep, and he's picking it apart piece by piece. So I think one should assume this is a guy who wants to build value, and he does it in a way that is not about sponsorship of a sailing event. That's not what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Ted Ryman down in Cape Town is saying, Ben is not dumb. I don't think he would fall out with Jim unless he had other options available to him. It will be interesting how this all pans out. Ted, I think the problem with that is he may have, I mean, he said he was astounded. He got fired. Sir Ben got fired. Let's face what happened here. And now he's trying to pick up the pieces and say, well, I'm still with the squadron and I'm now Athena Racing. He doesn't claim to be Ineos Britannia. And Grant Dalton knows he's got 2 pounds of you-know-what in a 1 pound bag, maybe 3 pounds. Now he's got to go sort this out, which is why I think he skedaddled out of New Zealand to get up to the UK and try to figure out how to solve this problem for the Cup going forward. And maybe he saw opportunities as well. So we'll see, Ted. Ed, wrap it up for us. What would you like to see happen going forward?
Well, I think the thing we all need to keep in mind is a lot of the sailors who have contracts with Ineos may have non-compete contract stipulations in their contracts. So they don't want to have a choice to go work for Ben or work for somebody else. Somebody like Radcliffe, just like Larry, they're thinking 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, those non-compete contracts are, especially in Europe, are really tough to enforce. And Europe's a little bit different place now. Of course, we got Brexit, and the UK is different yet. But most people think that people have the right to work, and the idea that somehow they signed a contract in AC37 that prohibits them from going and working for somebody else in AC38. It's possible. But that would end up, I think, being litigated, and it'd be tough to enforce. So,
well, the challenge is going to be for the Royal Yacht Squadron and who they pick, because it'd be very easy for Mr. Radcliffe just to go to another yacht club and form a challenge, and then he knows all the intricacies of how Ben operates and what Royal Yacht Squadron's doing.
Well, that's a risk. I think that's a very good point that no one's made. Good point. I hadn't thought of that either.
Yeah,
really good point.
Yeah, because he knows all the players. Because again, Radcliffe and Larry, they're thinking way ahead. So the challenge is for the Royal Yacht Squadron. They may have Ben and a challenge, but what happens if they can't fulfill the challenge and the money falls apart?
Well, and that's of course you're exactly right, and then that is why Grant Dalton has got to have his panties in a twist now, because losing the Challenger record, losing somebody who's compliant, who they've already got they've got a semi deal with. Okay, gents, it's 4 minutes after 3 here in San Francisco. We've been at it for a couple hours now, and I want to thank all 3 of you for coming on as a panel. We're going to do a little bit more in this show. We really appreciate it. Graham Sweeney in the upper right corner there, a Brit living in Scotland. Ed Worley, lower right. We're going clockwise here. An American living actually now in NorCal. He's from SoCal originally. And Gordon Smith, a Brit living outside of Copenhagen in Denmark. We appreciate you as our regular Zoomers during the Cup coming on again. Much appreciated.
Yeah, I'm very good. I loved every minute of it.
Indeed. I'm glad we did this. The Golden Rule. Thanks, guys. The Golden Rule. And we'll see how this pans out, and let's carry on. We'll do this day in history. Now, notice what I chose, Julia, as this day in history, since we've been talking about the Golden Rule.
Oh, gold.
You'll enjoy this.
Gold.
Julia,
Sir,
what happened on this day in history on the 24th of January,
1848.
1848?
Gold was discovered.
Gold was discovered where?
In California.
In California, exactly right. The Golden Rule. This guy, I had no idea he was a bloody German, Swiss, Mexican, American. This guy, Johann August Sutter, was born in Germany of Swiss parents, moved to Switzerland, ended up in Mexico, because remember, in those days, Mexico controlled California. And before the Mexicans would let him have any land, he had to live in this part of the world, Mexico, for a year before they'd give him any land. And they ultimately did give him some land. And then the war between Mexico and the States, and California ended up in the hands of the U.S. So he became ultimately a U.S. citizen, lived from 1803 to 1880. The gold rush, Blake Middleton, Sutter's Mill, Clay Embley is saying yes. And that is a picture circa 1850, 51, after they discovered it in 1848. That is gold, and it's up in Coloma, what is today Coloma. This is before Sacramento, the state capital, even existed, but it's up there in that direction, up by Lake Tahoe. And the California Gold Rush, which went on for a much shorter period of time than people realize, really just the late 40s, early 50s. But over the period of AC0, it began on January 24th, 1848, when gold was found by a guy who had been hired by this guy Sutter to do some work on timber cutting and so on. He was going to build a town, but as far as I read, James Marshall found gold almost by accident one morning, and the news in the Sutter's Mill. And the gold brought approximately 300,000 people to California from the rest of the U.S. and abroad. Ed says this is 50 miles from his now home up near Sacramento. That is what San Francisco Bay quickly became. I mean, it was empty. The town was only a handful of people.
Ships.
And then all these ships showed up, and this is again circa 1850, 51. And these are the merchant ships that filled San Francisco Bay. And Julia, as you know, ended up a lot of them on the bottom of San Francisco Bay.
Yeah, they were all abandoned.
And then converted into landmass, filled in and so on after, not till 1906, some of them. But that's what San Francisco Bay looked like as the gold rush was taking off. The effects of the gold rush were substantial. Whole indigenous societies, meaning the Native American Indians, were attacked and pushed off their lands, including by this guy Sutter, who was apparently a real crouton. Especially with respect to the indigenous folks, by the gold seekers called 49ers, which is why our football team is called the 49ers, referring to 1849, the peak year for gold rush immigration. Outside of California, the first to arrive were from Oregon to our north, the Sandwich Islands, now Hawaii, and Latin America in late 1848. Of the approximately 300,000 people who came to California during the gold rush, about half arrived by sea, and half came overland on the California Trail and up the California Road. 49ers were often faced substantial hardships on the trip, but they came, a lot of them, by water, including the Chinese. And that's why San Francisco to this day still has one of the largest Chinese populations of any city in the world, at least proportionally.
Yeah.
Ed Worley, Levi's jeans were made from the canvas of abandoned ships. Is that right?
Yep.
I didn't know that. You learned, so Ed's nodding his head yes. I didn't know that. Yeah, the merchants, Frederick Bland is saying, made more than the miners. Yeah, most of the miners didn't make a damn thing. I still like Levi's jeans. I still wear them almost every day. Or sometimes sweatpants. Now, I try to be youthful like the kids do, sweatpants. While most of the newly arrived were Americans, the gold rush attracted thousands from, as we said, Latin America, Europe, Australia even, and China. Agriculture and ranching expanded throughout the state to meet the needs of the settlers. This was a big economic boom. San Francisco grew from a small settlement of 200 residents in 1846 to a boom town of about 36,000 by 1852. And remember, this is all happening while the America's Cup is happening around the Isle of Wight, clockwise around the Isle of Wight in 1851.
Weren't paying attention at all.
And this seems like, you know, the cup is fairly recent and this seems ancient, but they were happening concurrently.
Yes.
I read that off my script, which of course I don't have a script, as you all know and can tell. Okay, the Constitution was written and this California became a state in 1850, the year before the cup. Okay. Denim is a French material invention made in France, denim, according to Graham Sweeney.
That's also
There
true.
are still gold in the creeks and rivers here, and hard rock gold miners still in operation. Ed, why don't you go up there
That's
and
true.
get some gold for us for Sailing Illustrated? Keep us. Here is a cartoon, a graphic of a postcard which was issued 150 years later in 1999 to commemorate the 49ers of 1849. There's the stamp up there in the corner and a postcard that I'd like to have one of those. I'm not sure why, but okay. The big question is, did Gordon Smith get his funny? Gordon knows full well that I'm using his funny in the D block because it was pretty funny and it was clean and it was not too intellectual or too esoteric. Gordon sometimes sends these things that are really quite esoteric. Postage stamp issued in 1999. That's what happened this day in history, 1848. The California gold rush begins at Sutter's Mill. He was a real crouton, that guy.
Ooh, Sutter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was. Yeah, he was.
He was a crouton. That gets us to the last leg, and as we promised, we'd have Jon Emmett's report for today that he did for us for today in this last leg, and it's a really nice one about, again, our Sailing Illustrated Group of the Year 2024, when you all decided we should recognize yacht club volunteers, or volunteers in general, but particularly yacht club volunteers, race volunteers at the clubs around the world that make our beloved sport possible. Here's Jon's report.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. Another little walk and talk around the marsh. And today I wanted to talk about volunteers, which was, of course, the main winner, the group winner from our 2024 awards. And they're just such an important group of people. Actually, without them, often there'd be no sailing events. And it's what makes clubs like Castle Cove and, very sadly, Weirwood such an important part of a sailing community. Now, I think when the landlord took over Weirwood, it will find it very hard to be profitable because, quite simply, all the value, the man hours of those volunteers, if you paid people to do that work, I don't think you would ever have the opportunity to make a profit. And for me, it's just incredibly important to have that sense of community. So we are literally building the pontoons, cleaning the slipways, etc. And it makes it so much more enjoyable in a way when you have that benefit. As well as one of the big barriers to sailing, we've talked about this a lot, is just the cost of sailing. It can be such a big thing, and having volunteer organisations, that brings the cost down. Because if you're paying people to do all those jobs, like being race officers, etc., well, then it just makes everything so much more expensive. And personally, I quite enjoy working behind the bar and doing all the various tasks to keep the sailing club running. In fact, we've actually had an employed bar person called Graham, great chap. I spent a lot of time there. But probably going forward in the next couple of years, you might even go to the point where it's only volunteers, and a fact where you can comment whether you think this is a good idea or not. I might be one of those people who's part of the bar team who runs it full time. Yeah, the volunteer side of things, it's so important, and we need to reward the volunteers, because I know people are often very, very happy to give up their time. I certainly, always want to put something back into the sport. I feel incredibly lucky to have had the pathway I have, and actually that's why I'm so sad about Weirwood. Not just that loss of history for myself, but for the next generation of sailors who could have been inspired to be full-time sailors or whatever, and may well not be now, because that facility, which for many was right on their door, has disappeared, and perhaps the next sailing club, Bow Beach, could be another half an hour drive. And it's this day of people feeling very time poor, etc. That's going to be a huge barrier now to some. And I think we need to work wherever we possibly can at removing any barriers to sailing, wherever they are. I think some are perceived. So simple things like, do we call things a qualifier series, or is it national opens? Are we a sailing club? Are we a yacht club? How welcoming are we to other members of the community who also use the wind to power their vessels? All this sort of stuff. And then there's the real costs, like the MOFs, which is just the pinnacle of dinghy development in a way. But it is very hard to get involved from a purely cost basis. So one of the things I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to try, I think, get some articles in Sailing Today and all the rest of it, just to spread the word, is how do you get into keelboats, top tips for keelboats? Because actually we have many members who are really crying out for crew. And I said, Lily at the moment, most of her focus now is on keelboats. So it's a really different world from that single-handed staff where you're just dependent on yourself. So I think just making things as accessible as possible is the only way forward for our sport. I look around the sailing club and I have such good mates there, but I do feel a lot of sailing clubs, the average age is just creeping up, and it's encouraging the youth of today, which we need to do. So on that note, let's have a little think for 2025, how we can get more and more people out on the water.
I think we'd better have a panel discussion, right?
Yep.
Better have a panel discussion on volunteers, on volunteerism. We are going to have a panel discussion on the whole thing with the whatever they're now calling it, but the Paralympics and Paralympic involvement and getting our sport more. And John's working on teeing that up. And we're going to have some other, I think the panel discussion, particularly on Fridays, are popular and will be popular. And we can do more things. We do one on PR. We can do one on getting people into keelboats.
Yeah.
And we can start doing what Dawn is doing, where she's going around the country here, but we can do it on a more international basis on here, on this show.
Yep.
Of comparing notes, best practices, ideas. And not all ideas are going to work that work on my little pond in Michigan are going to work on San Francisco Bay and big breeze and lots of current, but you never know. You never know. That is Jon Emmett. Jon Emmett's Jon Emmett Sailing, and another Coach's Corner. Get to the front of the fleet. Thank you, John. Thank you very much indeed. Also have an AAAA from Alistair, which I'm going to save until Tuesday. It's really a cool one, nice one, because we're now 18 minutes after 3.
Yes.
So we've been at this for 2 hours, almost 20 minutes, and I think we'll get to the D block and wrap this up and prove to Gordon that we've used his funny.
Oh, good.
And these things run hot and cold. Sometimes we get a bunch of these things in, and sometimes I get repeats of old ones, and then I get none. But we got some goodies today, a Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. First one is not one of our usual jokes, but just to, sadly, these Olympic medals apparently are rusting, or a lot of them becoming tarnished, and LVMH has taken it on the chin because they made a big PR splash prior to the games. They gave a lot of money to the games too, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, and apparently the medals which they took credit for are already rusting, and more than 100 top athletes want replacements.
Wow.
That according to a headline in Fortune magazine this week. Down at the bottom was under this photo, Olympic Getty photo by Jack Gues. Olympic medals are displayed on a custom designed trunk by LV at the Champions Park at Trocadero during the Paris 2024 Games. So that those medals were taken credit for, but now LVMH is pushing back. There's what's apparently happening to them. There was something wrong in the process, and of course LV didn't actually physically do the process of putting whatever finish on them. The rusting medals, a headline in Inside the Games, LVMH versus the mint that actually cast them, the blame game, the pointing of fingers, and there's a backside, or maybe that's the front side of the medal and the other's the backside. And on Tuesday, in a statement to the Daily Mail in the UK, an LVMH spokesperson denied any responsibility for the problem, insisting that their role was limited to, quote, the design of the medals through Chalmette. According to the company, the Paris Mint was solely responsible for production under the supervision of the IOC, which last week issued an apology and promised to replace all defective medals, ensuring they are identical to the original. So there's some good news there for those of you who won medals and maybe are finding that they're getting a bit rusty.
Gosh, how embarrassing.
It is embarrassing. Now, Gordon sent this. And see, now, Julia, does that deserve a finger?
Yes.
Why? It's a place. This is clean. This is a cable car, I guess you would call it, a gondola.
A gondola.
Right? Gordon sent this in, and I'm using it, the Gordon Smith. And at the Wank Mountain in Garmisch-Partenkirchen in Germany, this Wankbahn brings you to the Wank House on top, where there's a Wank view observation area. Wank tickets cost 27 euros, but there's also an unlimited Wank Leisure Pass for 175 euros. That's pretty handy. Okay, Gordon. Is Gordon still on there? Gordon's laughing his proverbial face off. There was another line there, Julia. There was a line at the end that said, I want to come there often, but I thought that was just over the top.
Oh, yes.
So I cut that out. Gordon, that was over the top to say I would come there often. You'd go there often, maybe, but look at it, Gordon. Okay. So I used it. Ted Ryman said, I saw that one and didn't think Tom would use it. Well done, Gordon. The Wankenschnitzel Zeppelin. I don't know about all that. Okay, now this is clean. And this is really funny because if you are an IKEA fan, as I am, or IKEA, as we say in Europe, flat pack Easter egg, that's what IKEA sells. It's a joke, Julia. That's chocolate.
Yes.
Flat pack Easter egg carton. I thought that was pretty good. Well played, IKEA. Ted Ryman said that. And I use that because it's clean. When something comes from Ryman and it's clean, you got to use it.
Got to use it.
When Gordon Smith said something you can understand, you got to use it. And this from another one of our Zoomers today. And I thought this apropos, you may have the parting of the Red Sea here by, I'm not sure whom, Moses and co. And then there's always got to be the character who's going to do the fishing. And that came from Graham Sweeney. J. Frederick Bland's saying IKEA. I don't know how it's pronounced in Swedish, but I know the Europeans pronounce it IKEA, and in the States it's pronounced IKEA because we pronounce the I differently in different. Thanks, Graham Sweeney. There's always one in the crowd, right? Thanks again to our Zoomers, to Graham and Ed and Gordon, who also sent in those funnies. That maybe is a caption contest, but we won't go into that today. We'll wrap this one up. We'll get to the finish line. And Julia, you like to say?
Yes, it does us very much good if you like, follow, and share.
Indeed it does. And comments are welcome too, even in replay. We're especially appreciative of all of you who watch, who contribute, and especially to those of you who have joined as patrons via patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated to help keep us on the air. We use your money not for buying bread or drinks at the yacht club, but for paying our bills here to keep Sailing Illustrated
Pedro
on the air.
Flying Sailor reminds us that Australia Day is tomorrow.
Yes, it is indeed. Happy Australia Day tomorrow, except the Germans always think it's bad luck, Pedro, to wish somebody happy birthday or happy whatever in advance. We will celebrate that with you on our Tuesday show. We want to also thank those of you who gave us audio, video, and images, and there's a long list today of folks who did. And thanks, Mark Holland, for loving, following, and sharing. Have a great weekend to all. Thanks, MJ, Mary Jude Szymanski, and everyone else who came on. And Julia, thank you to you. Thank you very much indeed. And we will see you all on Tuesday. We hope you have a great weekend. We hope you'll join us on Tuesday, same time, same channel. And in the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.